And we're back. And remember when I said episode 4 of WandaVision was a doozy? Well, episode 5 took me on a emotional ride that scrambled my brain, and I'm ready to talk to you about it just like we have for every other episode. We're gonna talk about things we know for sure, things we speculate about, and then things we absolutely don't know and we're waiting for answers on. So without further ado, let's talk television. Now, if you've missed the other episodes of what's going on, feel free to get caught up. I'll link them. I don't ever remember what side it goes on. You know this by now, probably. Alright, and as we always do, we're going to start with things we know since episode 4. I'm tired, here we go. We're in the 80s now, a la Step by Step, Full House, which is cute because, of course, Elizabeth Olsen is a sister of Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, the twins, who played Michelle in Full House, which was a late 80s, early 90s sitcom hit, obviously. Super funny. And I also think that Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany were singing the intro song to this episode, which is really cool. However, I will forever be haunted by the baby pictures of Vision. I will never forgive Marvel for doing that to me. I see him when I close my eyes. Her magic doesn't work on the twins. Now, Wanda, like every other new mom, finds herself to be very overwhelmed because her screaming, sentient, pooping potatoes, aka babies, won't go to sleep. And so she tries to just magic them to sleep, and that doesn't work. She doesn't seem startled by this in any way, but I was like, interesting. I'll get to why in the next portion of the video. So we know that the neighbor Agnes, who has been in every episode since the first episode, just sort of inserting herself into the lives of Wanda and Vision, is in on what's going on. She understands that this is at least a television show that Wanda is recording, right? Because she comes over, much to Vision's suspicion, like, oh, Auntie Agnes is here to help you with the kids. Vision is like, how did you know that our kids were misbehaving or crying a lot? Babies don't know that they're misbehaving. And she's like, oh, I heard them. And he's like, this is sus. Anyways, and she's like, let me hold the babies. And Viz is like not into it. He's like, no. He's being like a protective father. And Agnes looks at Wanda and she's like, do we start from the top? And Wanda's like, what are you talking about? And there's just like this really awkward, tense moment where like it's very clear that Agnes knows what's going on and nobody says anything about it. And then, you know, Wanda's like, Vision, like, let her hold the kids. It's whatever. Likewise, the kids just age themselves from children, like babies, to 5-year-old children. Agnes says nothing, Wanda says nothing, Vision says nothing. It's fine. We also know that Agnes is in on this because later in the episode, Wanda uses magic like right in front of her, right? Like, and Viz is very upset about it. He's like, what are you doing? And she's like, you know, I'm sick of hiding. And she didn't even notice when the kids aged up from potato to 5 years old. And once again, from 5 years old to 10 years old. And Vision's like, you know, you can't do that. Like, you can't like expose us like that. And she's like, I'm sick of hiding. And maybe you should be too. And he's like, Wanda, you and I are always on the same page, but we are not on the same page right now. Like, his suspicion is very much growing. And now, in this episode, which is super fun, we're sort of flip-flopping between S.W.O.R.D. and what's going on in WandaVision. And we come back to see Monica getting some tests done after she was like brutally ejected from Westview, of course. And her x-rays come back blank. Her blood work comes back inconclusive. They need to do it again, but she's certainly not about that. That's strange, and I'll get to some theories about that later on, but we do know that her medical stuff didn't go well. We also know that we do not deserve FBI agent James, aka Jimmy Woo. He is very pure, very smart, very competent, and very funny, and he's just so happy to get coffee for his new gal pals Darcy Lewis and Monica Rambeau, and I love him. I also think Randall Park is hilarious and a great actor, and I love that they're like not just using him for comedic relief, but he is sometimes, that he's also like very capable, and he's obviously like lending to the narrative. I think it's like a really great blend of both. And it's him and Darcy are like some much needed levity, I think. I think Darcy has always been hysterical. We also learned that Monica was placed under Wanda's mind control while she was in Westview, which she explained to be incredibly painful. And we learned this because they're all having a meeting in which we learned the next fact that we know, that we do not like Director Hayward. And by we, I mean Jimmy Woo, Darcy Lewis, and Monica Rambeau, and I'm going to put myself on some team, it's going to be their team, because they're fun. Anyway. We don't like him. He calls Wanda the, quote, principal victimizer. They once thought that Wanda was a victim of what was happening in Westview, but they've now since learned, obviously, she's controlling this narrative. And so he calls her a terrorist, and he says that she was radicalized by Hydra. And Jimmy stands up for her and says it's like sort of an oversimplification of what happened, but okay. And Monica stands up for her, and she's like, she's not a terrorist. Like, she doesn't have any political agenda. Like, Monica really sympathizes with the fact that she's grieving because she's lost so much, right? Now, in this little meeting, Jimmy Woo is explaining to everybody what we know about Wanda, right? And a couple of interesting things happen here. One, they've retconned Wanda's age. I know they've retconned her age. You know they've retconned her age. Let's talk about it. So in Age of Ultron, which takes place in 2016, it is theorized that Wanda and Pietro were about 17 years old. And this is backed up by a lot of things. You can Google it, and one thing off the cuff is like, Hawkeye, like, you don't have to do this. You can go back to high school. So let's say that they're 17 in 2016, right? This show, WandaVision, takes place in 2023 at the end of Endgame after the blip. So, that would make her about 24 years old, right? That was my brain just like short-circuiting to try and do that math right there. And they said she was born in 1989, which would make her somewhere between 33 and 34 years old if my brain can do math, depending on when her birthday is, depending on like what month this show is actually taking place in, right? Which there's no indication of that, really. So, you know, just like in the comics, there was a retcon nobody asked for. But I think that Marvel kind of knew that even though Vision is a synthezoid, and even though I know he's not actually Paul Bettany, that the age gap was like a little bit weird. And also like the fact that she was on the run with him when she was like 20. Anyways, it's fine. They've retconned her age. I also know for a fact from this meeting that SWORD is not interested in protecting her, right? We were, at least I was, a little confused about what sort of role that SWORD was playing here, right? If they wanted to extract her safely, if they saw her as a weapon, and it seems like they definitely see her as a weapon. They do not sympathize with her at all. Director Hayward is not about it. Not only that, they show some like really damning evidence of her going into this super secret lab and allegedly stealing Vision's corpse. Again, he's a synthezoid, so does he actually have a corpse? She stole his dead robot parts. Sorry. I love Vision. I'm not like trying to dunk on him, but he is a sentient toaster. Anyway, we also learn that all of this has taken place in the span of 9 days, because when she stole Vision's corpse was 9 days from when they said this meeting was, which blows my little mind. We also learn that SWORD has learned that Wanda is manipulating reality. This is something that us viewers have known a long time because of the drone turning into the helicopter and the guy in the hazmat suit being a beekeeper. These things that Wanda has done where she's taken pieces of actual reality and turned them into something different to protect herself and protect the city. SWORD is now up on that because Monica is brilliant and she put 2 and 2 together, and she went in to look at her clothes from the 70s when she was ejected from Westview, and she shoots at them, which is kind of startling. And she shoots at them because she was wearing a Kevlar vest, a bulletproof vest, when she went in to Westview, and they sort of analyzed the clothes to find out that the clothes are made a lot of Kevlar. So Wanda took something that already existed and turned it into something else. And so now they have this understanding that she is warping reality. We also know in a very, very cool scene that Wanda knows what's going on outside of Westview, right? So our least favorite person, Director Hayward, decides to send in this 80s style drone with Monica, because Monica says, you know, what if we send in something that is of the time period? And so then she wouldn't need to change it to match the time period. Maybe we could reach her. And so they send in this drone, and it goes to Wanda's house, and Monica's flying in. She's like, Wanda, I just want to talk. And Hayward has weaponized this drone without Monica knowing, and he's ready to fire on Wanda and her kids. And of course, Wanda does not like that. She destroys the drone. She drags his little drone body out of Westview, and she confronts SWORD, who all have guns on her. And she's like, this is your only warning. Don't mess with me. I won't mess with you. And Monica is like, you know, Wanda, you must have trusted me to some extent. Like, I didn't know about that missile, and you know that I didn't know because you're a telepath. And you also knew that I was a SWORD agent while I was in there, and you let me be in there, so you must have trusted, like, how can I help you? And Wanda's like, I don't need your help. Just, like, leave me alone, right? And so she goes back into Westview, and, yeah. So we know that she knows what's going on inside and outside the dome. which is pretty interesting. I'm sorry, the Hex. Darcy wants us to call it the Hex. I will respect her because I love her. We also know that Wanda's getting really overwhelmed, right? So in the beginning of the episode, she's overwhelmed by the babies crying so much, but then later on, the kids want to show Vision something, and they're like, where's Dad? And she's like, oh, he's at work. And they're like, but it's Saturday. She's like, no, it's Monday. Like, no, it's Saturday. So she's controlling this narrative, but she can't even remember what day it is. That seems problematic, and we'll get on to why I think that's important later on. And while Vision's at work on this Saturday that isn't a Monday, they get newfangled 80s computers, which is funny, and of course, like a trope on old sitcoms. And this message comes across, and it's about Darcy's research into what's happening inside of the Hex, inside of Westview. And all the coworkers are laughing, but Vision is not laughing, because Vision is already super sus. We've seen Vision be sus since like episode 3 at least. Maybe episode 2, where she was pregnant and she like magically became pregnant and she sent the beekeeper away. So the thing that we know is that Vision now knows what's going on. And he also has some powers, which is pretty interesting, right? He touches the temples of his coworker, someone we've seen before named Norm. And Norm suddenly snaps back to himself, like not the one controlled by Wanda, but himself. And he starts panicking. He's like, I'm in so much pain. Like, where's my phone? I need to call my sister. You have to stop her. He's like begging Vision to stop her. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Vision says, I don't know what you're talking about. Explain it to me. And then he sort of puts 2 and 2 together. And then he touches Norm's temples again. And Norm is like back to cracking jokes, like back in the 80s. Super weird, right? And we learn later, Vision confronts Wanda. And he's like, you can't control me like you can control everybody else. And we've seen that control slip, right? In the first episode, we saw her command him to do something and he did it. Like he needed her permission to do it. But since then, like Vision has been doing his own thing. And if Wanda could control him, he wouldn't be sus, I'm sure. But he confronts her and he's like, this is not okay. These people have families, Wanda, and I have to assume that this started subconsciously and you've just now become aware of it, which we know, like, isn't really the case, right? And so he's seeing this very out of character behavior for Wanda and they really get into it. And they have this really funny scene. It's not funny because it's like tense, but they both start to fly and they both do like the weird superhero leg where one leg is bent so they're not just like straight pulls as they fly up. It's very funny. It's not funny though because they're yelling at one another and it's sad. And she's like, you've never talked to me like this before, because he's yelling at her. And he's like, what do you mean before? I have no memories of my life before. Like, what's going on? You know, and Wanda just so desperately wants the now and the world that she's created to be enough for Vision, but Vision is very, very sus. And he's accusing Wanda of controlling the whole world around them, and Wanda is just gaslighting the crap out of him. Like, could I do that? Do you think so? And she even tries to roll the credits while they're arguing to end the episode, and Vision is not having it. And so they're having this argument as like 80s style credits are rolling over the argument. It was cute and creative, I think. And I was, even though it was like a tense moment, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. However, the doorbell rings and Wanda's like, I didn't do that. And Vision doesn't believe her. But at this point, why would she lie to Vision? He's already figured it out. And she goes to open the door, and the next thing that we know is we got the worst Pietro back. In fact, his name isn't even Pietro. It's Peter Maximoff. We got the Fox X-Men Peter Maximoff back. And she's shocked to see him, and he doesn't know who Vision is. So we can assume that he doesn't have Pietro's memories because he doesn't know who Vision is. And we can also assume that he's like a Peter from a different reality, like a Pietro from a different reality, right? And so things are starting to get a little hairy. And it's worth mentioning that not only is Wanda, like, obviously manipulating reality in some ways, we also have that Loki show coming out this year where he's messing with time streams. So between the time situation and the reality situation, things are getting very strange for the MCU. We also know from Monica, now we don't know if this is like true, but Monica did say it, so it's true to them, that the kids are real. Right? Like, everything in there is real, and therefore the kids, Tommy and Billy, are real. This is a not so great segue into what we think we know, which, oh boy. I have to introduce you to a character that I kind of forgot existed. Buckle up, buckaroos. Alright, here's what we think we know. What I think I know. I still maintain that Monica is a mutant called Spectrum. And the reason why I speculate this even harder now is because, and yes, I was wrong in the past about Evan Peters becoming Speed because they're going to age up. I get that. But listen, this one I feel like you guys can buy into too. So Spectrum in the comics is a mutant who can basically like change into different forms of energy, right? So like she can read energy and just like become it, which is pretty interesting. So I say that she is Spectrum because her blood work was super weird and the x-rays were super weird, which would make sense for somebody who can like alter their energy into like x-ray form and stuff like that. I'm oversimplifying her powers. If you want to know more about her, like give her a Google. However, after that happens, almost immediately after that happens, Monica is talking with Jimmy Woo and Darcy about how she might get back into Westview, and she's talking about basically needing a bomb shelter on wheels. They're kind of just spitballing, and they know it's outlandish, but she's talking about all this different kind of energy that wouldn't be able to penetrate certain kinds of, you know, things that they might make this bomb shelter out of. So it just seems like too much foreshadowing for me to have her talking about like different forms of energy and waves and stuff if like they're not sort of angling toward that. Now, mutants are not always what they seem in the MCU, of course. Like Wanda and Pietro got their powers through the Mind Stone, and so it's possible that like suddenly Monica has like gotten these powers through Wanda shoving her through Westview or whatever, like a reaction to Wanda's powers or something. I don't know, but I think that's where they're headed. I think the twins have some magic of their own. Again, as I said, the mutant thing is a little iffy in the MCU because of the whole Fox deal where they weren't allowed to say mutant and whatever. But it's interesting to me that Wanda cannot control the twins with her powers, right? We saw that in simple ways and in big ways. So we saw that when she tried to put them to sleep and she couldn't. And when they aged themselves up and she was shocked, right? We've seen her do things before and the audience was in on the fact that she knew what she was doing. This was not the case this time. So I don't know if they're gonna be like mutants or if they're just gonna have like weird powers because they are her kids. However, canonically, mutants do not get their powers until they hit puberty, right? And so if they're aging in increments of 5 years, they age from babies to 5-year-olds to 10-year-olds. They get a puppy in this episode and sadly like the puppy dies. And the kids are so upset they want to age up again to sort of avoid this grief. And Wanda's trying to teach them a lesson, like you can't run away from your grief, which of course is very sad because that's what Wanda's doing, like heavy-handed foreshadowing, blah, blah, blah. But she urges them not to age up. And I think that was interesting and sort of pivotal because they would certainly be around puberty age at 15, and some of their powers may kick in. I don't know. Okay. So this is sort of like an out there theory, but I'm just gonna say it anyways because I trust you guys. I think Hayward might be Hydra. Right, he's so non-sympathetic to like what's going on with Wanda and all the things that she's been through that I feel like he's just like, he could just be a jerk. Like that's possible also. However, he could be Hydra and that would be very interesting because we haven't heard anything about Hydra, but yet we keep seeing like all these Hydra-based commercials. And that could just be Wanda's trauma, of course, just sort of surfacing. She's got enough of it. I understand, girl. But yeah, I think that'd be interesting. Something is going on with Captain Marvel, I think, because every time she gets brought up, Monica's super touchy about it. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if she's just like off-planet, doing off-planet stuff or what. So I think that the sword footage of Wanda going to take Vision's body is doctored. I don't think that it's real. And the reason why is because Hayward makes such a big deal about how in Vision's will, it says that he does not want to be like resurrected, basically, because he doesn't want to become a weapon for anybody. Right? Because he'd be a very powerful weapon like Ultron was. And he was safe in the Avengers' hands, but he didn't want to fall into the wrong hands. And so Hayward makes a big point of being like, she went against his wishes, which seems really out of character for Wanda, right? Somebody who created an entire false reality just so she could be a mom and a wife to like the love of her life. However, it does fall in line with the idea that she can manipulate reality of things that are there. So I don't know. I also don't think that Wanda is capable of bringing people back from the dead. And this is the part you need to buckle up for. I think that the neighbor is this character, the neighbor Agnes, is this character named Agatha Harkness, who is a really old and really powerful witch. And I kind of forgot about her character because she's a big tie-in to the Fantastic Four, and I don't care about the Fantastic Four. But she is pivotal to Wanda's story as well, and I had kind of forgotten that because they were in old comics. Anyways, basically, the deal with Agatha Harkness is she's this super old witch, and she It's really, really convoluted, and I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible. But basically, she helps Wanda understand the chaos magic that she can wield. So Wanda's mutant powers and her ability to wield this chaos magic, Wanda has always considered two separate things. So I think that we're going to find out that sort of retroactively she's been meeting with Agatha to sort of train her magic up, right? And I think this because in that scene where the puppy passes away, the kids are begging Wanda to bring the puppy back. And they're like, bring him back from the dead. Like, you can fix anything, mommy. Like, please. And Agatha looks shook. Agnes looks shook. And she's like, you can do that? You can bring things back from the dead? Like, not even like you have powers. It's just like straight up like your powers are that strong. And Wanda says nothing. Wanda doesn't kick her out of Westview. Wanda doesn't bat an eye even. And so it's really clear that Agnes knows more than everybody. Maybe even Wanda, truly. Basically, in the comics, it's this like weird, long, like I said, convoluted thing where Agatha Harkness is the one who tells Wanda that her first incarnation of Billy and Tommy are shards of a soul of this bad guy named Mephisto, and instead of helping Wanda keep the souls of her children from being reabsorbed into this bad guy, she wipes Wanda's memory and helps train her in her chaos magic. And she isn't a bad guy. She's like a little morally gray. Like sometimes she does things that are kind of questionable, but like on the whole, she's not like terrible. But I think this is important because I think there may be a Fantastic Four tie-in, which the Marvel Cinematic Universe has tried to do, and also therefore a Doctor Doom tie-in. And Doctor Doom is important because at the end of House of M, after Wanda says no more mutants, and 90% of the mutant population is depowered, including Wanda and Pietro in the comics, Wanda flees to this place called Wundagore Mountain. And there's a lot of fallout, like a lot of people die. The depowering thing is like a huge storyline, right? In House of M and Avengers Disassembled is sort of the comics that I believe that this show is pulling from. So she flees to Wundagore Mountain. And then we get to the Young Avengers. Essentially, it's called Children's Crusade. And Wiccan, her son, Billy, whose soul was put into a real-life child. Again, we've kind of covered this before, but the souls of the children were put into real-life children who grew up and became part of the Young Avengers, unbeknownst to Wanda, who has fled to Wundagore Mountain. Wiccan's powers, aka Billy, his powers are on the fritz, and he knows his powers are very similar to the Scarlet Witch's, just by chance. And so he's like, I'm gonna go find the Scarlet Witch, right? Magneto gets wind of this, and Magneto is like, I'm your grandpa, probably. And they're like, great, Gramps, let's go. And they try, like, the Avengers try and fight Magneto, but Wiccan transports them to Wundagore Mountain, where they run into Wanda. Except she's a Doombot, because then they go to Latvia, and they find out that Wanda is depowered, she has amnesia, and she is, for some reason, engaged to Doctor Doom. And come to find out, she and Doctor Doom tried to summon this life force, super strong power of the universe to bring Billy and Tommy back because she thought she had killed them when the reality was destroyed that she had created in House of M during her breakdown, right? She did not know that their souls had gone elsewhere. And Doctor Doom ends up inhabiting this power and becoming godlike. And then the Scarlet Witch and Wiccan work together to take him down. Wanda gets her memories back, and she's like, you don't think that I wouldn't know my own sons? And it's like this big, heartfelt reunion, all for it to be later retconned, and we find out that Wanda isn't actually a mutant. She's not Magneto's daughter, and the Scarlet Witch is this thing that was passed down from her mother that she didn't know about. It's a stupid retcon, and we do not respect it in this house. However, I think that Agatha Harkness is there to help train Wanda with her magic, and to tie in the Fantastic Four, and therefore Doctor Doom, in order to create this Children's Crusade situation where we get the Young Avengers and they go looking for Wanda. It's super convoluted, and I'm very sorry, and if you read comic books, you know why this is convoluted. And if you don't, I'm so sorry, I hope you could follow along. Oh, and after the whole Doctor Doom thing happens, it's revealed that Doctor Doom was behind what happened in Avengers Disassembled, where she had a breakdown and she accidentally killed Vision, Clint, and Ant-Man, who all came back to life later. It's fine. And also what happened in House of M. So I don't know if that's what they're going to do, if they're going to try and absolve Wanda of all this, like, bad guy stuff. Like, they're trying to, like, Sword is trying to make her be the bad guy right now. by saying it was all Doctor Doom's fault. I don't know how I would feel about that. Anyways, and lastly, I think that Wanda really wants help, but she doesn't know how to trust people, right? So Monica makes a great point while Wanda is like low-key threatening them, like a bad lady, like bad isn't cool. Anyways, Monica makes a great point when she says, "You must have trusted me to some degree because you allowed me into your home." And the same thing with Agnes. Wanda must trust her to some degree because she must know who she is, right? If she is Agatha Harkness or some MCU likeness of an old powerful witch, maybe they're not going to make her Agatha Harkness. Maybe they're going to make her someone much like her. Wanda must know that she's a telepath in the MCU, right? And so I think she's just like, she wants to trust people, but she's been burned by Hydra because, you know, they volunteered for that because they thought it would save their country, and then they were just experimented on and turned into freaks. And then, then Ultron killed her brother and wasn't exactly what she thought it was going to be. Obviously, they switched sides and fought Ultron with the Avengers, but they were on Ultron's side at first, thinking he was someone he wasn't. And then, she was trapped inside of the Stark compound in upstate New York after the Lagos thing because Stark was afraid of her power. And you have, Captain America saying this is unreasonable, and she kind of finds out that she's kidnapped, and she sends Vision through 8 floors of the Stark Tower compound place. Yeah, anyways. My girl is traumatized, and I don't think she knows how to trust people, and it makes me so sad. I definitely didn't cry when Pietro showed up, and she was so upset and shocked. Anyways, let's move on to things we have questions about. This is a long video, folks. Here's what we don't know. Is Vision alive or dead? I say this because I don't think that Wanda can bring people back from the dead, because if she could, she would have brought the actual Pietro back. So Peter Maximoff exists somewhere, as per the MCU has now said, because they brought him here. And she allegedly needed Vision's corpse to create Vision. So I don't think she can just create things out of thin air. And I think if she could bring people back completely from the dead, and Vision isn't actually a person, by the way. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean. He's a blender. That was a little mean. I think if she could have, she would have resurrected the puppy for the kids. I think she would do anything for the people that she loves. And I think that's pretty clear. So, I don't know. Is Vision dead or alive? I have no clue. He's a robot, so he's probably neither. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to keep dunking on Vision. Will we be stuck in the MCU with the worst Pietro? It has nothing to do with Evan Peters, really, and a lot to do with the writing. It's fine, but am I gonna be stuck with him forever? Please. Are the kids in Monica actually mutants? I speculate that they are, but I need to know. Is Agnes a friend or a foe? She seems to be a friend, and I think that she is, but we don't actually know at this point. She could be getting intel, or I don't know, there's lots of things that she could be doing. And will we finally see the iconic Scarlet Witch crown and outfit in the 90s, where we'll probably be in the next episode? I'm so excited for that. I'm gagging for it. I need it, and I haven't seen it yet. I need it. Anyway, speaking of the Scarlet Witch, Hayward said that she had no alias. I thought we already knew her as a Scarlet Witch. It seems dumb to me. I don't know. Anyway, this was a doozy of an episode. I'm really enjoying this series. I think it's really great. I think they're doing some really creative stuff in it. MCU is problematic in the ways that it's problematic, and I recognize that. But I am deeply enjoying the show. I like seeing parts of Wanda that we didn't get to see because she was so poorly developed, like almost every other female character in the movies while we were watching them. So they're doing a little extra work after the movies are over. That's nice. And I'm really interested to see where it goes. Things are getting really hairy. What's gonna happen with Vision in the next episode? He is so suspicious. Not even suspicious, he knows what's up, and he's like, this is not okay. What's gonna happen? I don't know. Let me know what you're thinking of the show. If you're liking it, please tweet me. You can tweet me at hello_destiny. I also have a TikTok because I'm hip with the children. I'm so sorry. You can follow me there too. It's at nerd_news. Sorry this video was so long. I hope you like staring at this nonsense for that long. And also this nonsense for that long. But thanks for sticking with me. I really appreciate it, and I love making these videos about WandaVision. I'm so excited to make them about the Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is coming out in March. Did you guys see that Super Bowl commercial? It was super funny. I'm really excited to see this. I'm excited for more action because WandaVision is super cool, but there's just not enough butt kicking in it for me also. So super excited for that. Let me know what you're thinking. Hit me up on social media. I hope you guys have a great day, a great week. I hope you enjoyed the new episode, which airs on Disney Plus on Friday. And until then, I will see you guys same-ish time, same place. And until then, this has been Nerd News with Destiny.